We are getting to a point in our development where things that used to apply 300 years ago, what was the purpose of making it criminal when it was made criminal? Was it for religious views? Was it a public health issue? Was it a human safety issue? What was it in terms of social order? What was the reason for the initial promulgation of that bit of legislation? It is a piece of legislation that we inherited from the British. And in 1962, when we became independent, we did what was called a saving clause. I don't remember the actual words of the clause, but it just simply means that as of tomorrow, when we are independent, everything that we had before we became independent, we still have. Interestingly, the country that developed it has long repealed it and has replaced it with more intelligent laws that ensure that personal human rights are respected, that religious preferences are respected, that public health is respected, and that social order is respected. I have relatives who serve on the police force. My granduncle was a commissioner of police, the late Basil Robinson. And I don't know if I did want any of my relatives looking into any of your windows to see you committing that act, to know whether you must now be brought before the court. Some police officers say it demeans them that among their list of things to do is almost to pry in somebody's bedroom. Have we discussed with them in terms of their professional actualization whether or not that offense is something they want to be the person responsible for catching somebody in the offense? And then, we're adults here, there are certain things that adults do in their bedroom, heterosexual adults, which are offensive to that very same law in terms of indecency. And I don't think I have to spell it out, but is oral sex legal in Jamaica of any kind? Right? And there's another issue with the Buggery Act. There is a specific charge for buggery. There's a specific charge for rape. The consequence of rape could go all the way to life imprisonment. Are you suggesting that if an adult female uses an implement or an instrument to bugger a female girl beneath the age of 16, that is not to be treated at a higher level as a rape? Because we have this old archaic law that gives greater importance in statute to the rectum than it does to the vagina. So I'm not sure the society is ready yet for that high-level discussion. The society is still sadly trapped at the boom-bye-bye level. This is far more important than that. And that's why until now I have stayed out of any public discussion with it, because my approach to things is, if you're not going to have a thorough discussion as educated leaders supposed to have, me just not bother waste my time. With respect to public health, what we have access to now in terms of modern sanitation, we did not have access to then. For those religious traditionalists that say the law upholds Christian beliefs, you know the book of the Bible that it comes from? That book says that if you and I are married, were I so lucky to have you as my wife, during your menstruation, I am actually supposed to cast you out of my house, and you must visit with other women in a harem. So how all of a sudden, I'm going back to it again, we have a Bible, omnipotent and omniscient God. we decide, because of modern information and modern knowledge and modern sanitation and modern practices, that is not all of Leviticus makes sense, but that one piece of Leviticus is more important than the 8 Beatitudes. No, my understanding of Christ is that he was the greatest reformer. God had ordained his world, he had structured it, and he was displeased. And this is going to shock your readers that I can even make reference to the Bible. And he took a decision. And the famous line of scripture is, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life." It goes on in other parts to say, "I am the light and the way, and anybody who comes to the Father through me will live with him in eternity." Right? Now, if Christ was a great reformer, and he had 33 years on earth, he changed Mosaic law. An eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind came out of the same body of books and beliefs that Leviticus comes out of. You know where the Beatitudes came from? The return from Mount Olivet? Christ in his own word, as given to us in the gospel, identified 8 key guidelines. They don't replace the 10 commandments necessarily, but they are more important than the 10 commandments. Moses was human. Christ is the Son of God. And he gave us 8 beatitudes that sets out how we are to live. If it was so profound and important, wouldn't Christ have made mention of it? That's just a question I always ask. The other thing is this argument that to repeal Buggery as an offense will destroy marriage in Jamaica. My parents have lived together for over 42 years, and as I have previously said, marriage was not a feature of that. I don't see heterosexual couples running to get married. I would be astonished if the risk of the sanctity of marriage comes out of an archaic piece of legislation. I don't see the connection. My grandmother says 3 things you mustn't discuss in public: religion, politics, and I have a profession that forces me to discuss 2 already. So I try not to discuss religion because I believe that everybody has a personal relationship with God. And in terms of my views are actually more conservative in terms of my religious views than people realize. There's a difference based on my religion than my job as a legislator. And if a piece of legislation makes no sense in the modern reality, then why retain it? And again, I would ask all of you to look on the Offenses Against the Persons Act. Look at the maximum charge for Buggery. 10 years. Look on the maximum charge for rape. And I am deliberately, not being offensive, I'm deliberately locating, just for teaching purposes, I'm deliberately using as an example the female gender. Because we're all aware, who here didn't watch Sex and the City? So we know Samantha has done so much for sex education that nobody else could have done, right? So we have sex toys, we have implements, we have strap-on dildos. If an adult woman uses a strap-on dildo to rape a young girl under the age of consent through forced anal sex, does that deserve a different treatment under the law? 10 years maximum? Does the law even contemplate that reality? No, it doesn't. The law is focused on male assumed forced penetration. And if it is forced, treat it as a rape. If that law, and it's not even a whole law, if that particular section of one piece of legislation is going to prevent Jamaicans from having salvation, then I don't think we believe that God is omnipotent and omniscient. Right? But My granny would have said, to each his own. And I think she's wise. And you can quote that one. To each his own. But it's forgive the pun, it's a touchy issue. And it's one that former Prime Minister Patterson recently spoke to. And I believe he's correct when he says that Jamaica might find that the way that the globe has been going, we can't stay away from that direction for much longer.